Hello, everyone. On behalf of Berkeley College, I would like to thank you today and welcome you today. And my name is Janelle Giles. I'm the Director of Student Development and Campus Life. Good morning. Before we begin, please allow me to take a moment to recognize some guests in the room. I would like to recognize our Campus Operating Officer, Linda Pinsky. Our Vice President of Student Development and Campus Life, Dr. Dallas Reed. Angela Harrington, in charge of our communications. Now, in celebration of Black History Month, we are excited to have Dr. Sampson Davis join us here today. Dr. Sampson Davis has been named one of the 40 most inspirational African American history in the country. In an effort to draw attention to this wonderful event, we partnered with system-wide with our online book club. Please allow me to introduce Matt LeBrake.
Good morning. Thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Matt LeBrake. I'm the online library director here at Berkeley. This will be our fourth author event sponsored by the online book club, which is brought to you by the library and student development and campus life. We launched in the fall of 2014 and it went through from a handful of online students to 270 students system-wide as part of our membership. We will continue to discuss a new book each term and try to host events like this one to complement our discussions. If you would like to be on the mailing list, there's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room and you can just check that box to get put on it. If you're tuning in online, you can just email libraryonline@berkeleycollege.edu. This term we read Living and Dying in Brick City by Dr. Davis. And we had a lively virtual discussion about this book over the last 2 weeks in our online forum on Goodreads. And thank you for those here in the audience and watching online that participated in that discussion. And we're thrilled to have Dr. Davis join us here today to present on his experiences and answer questions from the Berkeley College community, both here in person in Woodland Park and watching remotely. We have live screenings going on at all of our Berkeley campuses, and online students are also able to watch this from wherever they may be in the world. We have a live audience of about 100 people here in the room, and it should be about 100 more tuning in online. When we get to the question and answer portion of today's event, we're going to be trying to alternate between questions in the room and questions coming in from our remote viewers. So we have a very powerful mic here, and if everyone could please try to just respect the fact that students are watching from other locations and keep the noise level to a minimum in the room. And for those of you viewing online, you'll be able to ask questions through Skype, and they'll be relayed to the speaker from the ladies in the side of the room here. So please be patient if your question doesn't get answered right away, and we'll make sure we get to you. So thanks again, and I'll hand this back to Janelle to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Matt. Just a few housekeeping. If everyone can please silence their phones at this moment. Thank you. Dr. Davis was raised as the fifth of 6 children in Newark, one of New Jersey's poorest cities. As a child, Dr. Davis grew up in a cramped living quarters. Surrounded by fragmented families, crime, and drugs, Dr. Davis, still he was a good student, able to strike the fragile balance between being smart and socially acceptable, especially on the streets. It was this combination of skill, Dr. Davis says, they were most critical to his survival. While attending University High School in Newark, Dr. Davis met Dr. Rameek Hunt and Dr. George Jenkins, 2 fellow students who together made a promise to become doctors. Dr. Davis and his 2 childhood friends each successfully fulfilled their pact. Today, Dr. Davis is a board-certified emergency medicine physician. In February of 2013, Dr. Davis released the newest book, Living and Dying in Brick City, an ER doctor returns home. In addition to discussing Dr. Davis' riveting experiences as an ER physician, the book will also offer preventive guidance as a means to support healthier communities. Dr. Davis has appeared on numerous talk and radio shows, including Oprah, The Today Show, The View, Michael Basin Radio Show, Tavis Smiley, and NPR, as well as printed publications, including, but not limited to, the Reader's Digest. Ms. Winfrey also delivered the highest honor, naming Dr. Davis the premier role models of the world. Dr. Davis was honored in 2000 with the Essence Lifetime Achievement Award and also named one of their 40th most inspirational African Americans in the country. He is the youngest physician to receive the National Medical Association highest honor, the Scroll of Merit, and was previously honored on 2009 BET Awards. Today, Dr. Davis spends his time practicing medicine and traveling the country, delivering keynote speeches with timely messages. Dr. Davis believes it is important to give education a sense of style and fashion. To glorify and glamorize education is the key. A face must be present, a concrete image that all individuals across America can draw inspiration from. Dr. Davis considered his 3 Ds, dedication, determination, and discipline, as the necessary ingredients to success. Today, Dr. Davis is a board-certified emergency medicine physician at several emergency departments in New Jersey. He has been a weekly correspondent on the Tom Joyner Morning Show and CNN, where he highlighted prevalent and life-changing medical topics. Dr. Davis is also a co-author of 3 New York Times best-selling books entitled The Pack, We Beat the Street, and The Bond. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sampson Davis.
All right, good morning. Good morning. How's everybody feeling? Good, good. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I know we worked with Janelle to make this happen, and we spoke several times and to get this together. And so I'm happy that today is finally here, and I'm here to be with you guys. And so thank you for having me. I just want to share a little bit about who I am, my backdrop. Reason being is because I feel like so many of you guys sitting in the audience today, you remind me of the younger me. I remember being your age. I remember sitting in similar seats, and you know, you're somewhat at that ripe age of saying, I'm on the right path and I know where I want to take my future. Now I just have to put in the energy. I mean, you have arrived in so many ways, but now you have to put in the energy and have the fortitude to push forward. And that's not always easy. It's not always simple because life complexities are still occurring every single day. You still have challenges outside of school that you're facing, everything from living at home and trying to figure out rent and trying to figure out how to feed yourselves and clothing. And you know, we all have those favorite relatives who calls us and unload their stuff on us to help them resolve, and we have to deal with that. So these are all the things that's still happening, and sometimes it really can cloud your judgment and really distract you from where you need to go. So first and foremost, you are in the right place. You know, and right now what's beautiful about the place that you're in is that you are an artist. You can really mold and carve out your future as bright as you want it to be. You know, it's really up to you. It starts with you. I can't do it for you. Your parents or your educators can't do it for you. But the beauty about that, as well as your educators and your parents, are there to serve as catalysts, as mentors, as bridges to where you need to go. But in your mind and in your heart, you have to feel that you are the best at what you're doing, and you will be the best at what you're going to do in life. You really have to believe and own that. You have to believe in yourself. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and many guys are familiar with Newark, and similar to Patterson, similar to Passaic. I grew up with a lot of have-nots. I didn't have enough money, I didn't have enough food, very poor, despair, drugs. I grew up in the height of the crack epidemic in the 80s, where you start to see people just waste away smoking crack on the corners. Stolen car capital. You know, we had a guy named Johnny who could take a car, steal it, and do donuts in the parking lot and outrun any police officer there is. So as a kid, I didn't have hopes and aspirations that I would become a doctor, please, yet alone even survive to this point in my life. I thought I would be another statistic that would be wiped away from this planet before I even reached my 21st birthday. You know, so I lived every day like it was my last. I had 5 siblings, single parent home, which wasn't an anomaly because all my best friends were from single parent homes. If you had 2 parents, you're like, man, you weird. You got both your parents, your mother and your father? Like, what's wrong with you? You know? And that was the backdrop. So 2-bedroom home, you do the math, 5 siblings. I didn't have my own room. I certainly didn't have my own bed, which was cool because we had heat in the summer and AC in the winter. You know? So it was cool. You know, siblings sleep together. I had an older brother, younger brother. We slept in the bed together, kept each other warm. It was good until somebody peed the bed. as my colleague would say, Dr. Hunt. And then what we do when somebody peed the bed, you flip the mattress, right? So that was my backdrop. And my mother always believed in school. She wasn't afforded an opportunity to complete high school. She grew up in the rural South in a farm in the 1930s. And so when her mother passed away at an early age, my mother at 8, 9 years old was in charge now of taking care of the house, the daily chores. She had to help make sure all the food was prepared. As the men came in from the farm, she had to make sure that they were fed and taken care of. So that was her story. So when she started to have children, I was born, she always said, you go to school, education, education, education. She said, education is paramount. Education is the passport to your future. So when I was in second grade and third grade, as you remember, education was the coolest thing out. Teacher asked you a question, what's 2 times 2? You went bonkers. Ooh, pick me, pick me. And like, she never picks me. Pick me, right? So that was my backdrop. And I enjoyed school. But somewhere in the 4th and 5th and 6th grade, all of a sudden, school isn't cool any longer. All of a sudden, it's like your friends call you names because you're doing well in school. And the teacher pick me, what's 2 times 2? Like, I ain't answering that. But education is the coolest thing out. If school wasn't cool, it wouldn't rhyme, right? It goes together, right? If it wasn't cool, it wouldn't rhyme. And so my thing is, we have to embrace education. We have to glorify and glamorize education. We have to realize that education is the passage to your future. It's the bridge that's going to get you there. It's the beginning of the mountain that you have to climb. And so our young kids that are being faced with being called names because they're academically excelling, we have to flip that on its ear and make school cool. And they call you a nerd today, we have to tell them, young man, young lady, if they call you a nerd today, that's okay, because they'll be calling you boss tomorrow. So embrace your academic excellence. If you got an A on the test, you should be like, your partner, your man should be like, man, you got an A on the test, that's what's up. Like, you are the man. It should be celebrated. We should feel excited. If your child brings home an A on the test, you should be like, man, you are a rock star. Because the choices that I had growing up was like, okay, everybody wanted to be a rapper, a football player, a basketball player. I mean, I could play ball, but I can't. I used to be able to touch the rim, but barely. I tried to spit, didn't work out. I try to rap a little bit. It sounds only good to me. And of course, my mother, your mother's gonna support you regardless. She's like, baby, you sound good. No, I don't. I sound awful, Mom. I know I do. So that was my backdrop. So as time went on, you are your environment. You cannot aim for what you cannot see. So I was surrounded by that. So before long, as I started to get older, it don't take long to realize when you start to hit those teenage years that your reality is different than what you imagined as you were growing up. It's not cartoons any longer. It's not Superman and his friends or Spider-Man. It's not that any longer. It's a real situation. Like, I am poor. I am trying to figure out day to day. I'm trying to survive. So what happens is you start hanging out with people in the streets because I didn't have dad at home. So I started to emulate the people that I saw in the streets, the young men that I saw in the street. Like, I want to be like him. And these are not good choices to choose from. So before long, I started to get in trouble. I was arrested the first time when I was 13. Now I was arrested again for the last time I was 17 and a half. And at 17 and a half, I was sitting in juvenile detention, and I literally had an out-of-body experience. I saw myself outside my body, sitting in the detention facility, dying. I saw myself being next moved to a morgue and being put in the ground because that was where I was in my life. And I realized that I had to make a choice. I had to decide on what I was going to do in my future, which was very difficult at the time because I didn't have anything to grab onto that was positive. So I was given a second opportunity. I was facing some years for robbery in prison. And I was given a second opportunity with a 2-year suspended sentence. So I had 2 years of probation. I had to go to probation for 2 years. And the judge said to me, young man, if you ever come back into my courtroom, make sure you bring your toothbrush because you're not going home. And I looked down like, man, you don't have to ever worry about seeing me back here again. And I did go back. I must say. But I went back as an expert witness in an emergency medicine case. And it was definitely a lot better feeling to be on the other side of the bench. I'll tell you that much. I was like, yeah, they did it. Get them. Get them. They're guilty. So when I get back to high school, because this incident when I was 17 and a half, and it's funny because, we lose those halves as we get older. You remember, I'm 10 and a half, I'm 11 and a half as we get older, like I'm 23, 24. And really, as you really get older, you lose that second number. I'm in my 40s. That's all you're getting. That's it. No more. I'm a rising 40-year. I even try to stretch it like to pretend I'm not there yet. So I was given a second opportunity. I went back to high school between my junior and senior year, and I always was kind of not really applying myself. You know, I mean, I was doing well, getting through school, but I really wasn't applying myself. But my senior year in high school, I got back. I was started, because this took place over the summer, and when I got back my senior year, all A's. Every test you name, every class you name, I didn't care if I didn't like it, all A's on every test. I didn't care what you called me. Oh, you got an A on that test, what's wrong with you? Yep, nothing. I got an A, that's right. I want to get an A on the next one. And so my two friends at the time still was intimidating for young men and young women coming from struggling environments, is that how am I going to move ahead? How am I going to find that bridge to where I need to go? Because often we're so entrenched in the community that we grow up, we don't step outside of that community. We don't have opportunities to step outside that community. So it's a fear factor, whether we admit it or not. Like, you're about to embark into another arena that you've never been to. So it was as if, even though I live in the United States of America, I was living a war zone, going to a place that I'd never been, which would have been college. I didn't know how to go by doing that. I didn't even know one in my family ever went to college. I mean, half my siblings didn't even graduate high school. So how am I supposed to dare to dream so big? Who am I to think that I can do this? So I'm in high school now. I'm like, okay, all A's, got me a part-time job at McDonald's. You know, I was like, all right, you know, this McDonald's thing, you know, might work out well. They promoted me to crew chief, so I was really feeling good about myself. And then assistant manager, like, oh man, you know, ain't nothing like that McDonald's, I tell you. Those golden arches. So I'm still trying to figure out, senior year is starting, we're kind of moving through. And my two buddies, who I speak about in our first book, The Pack, Ramik and George, they're my friends. They're my friends at University High School. I hang out with them every single day at school. When school is over, I have to hop on 2 public buses and go back across town to get to Newark, to Dayton Street, where I grew up at. So I'll hop off the 24 bus and I will walk home. And walking from the bus stop to my house, I had to put on I had to camouflage and morph into somebody that I wasn't. I had to get a little scowl on my face, a little bop, because these were the codes of survival. If you look weak, you would be challenged. If you're challenged, then people would try to attack you. So I had to look the part of the community. And part of me was that, but I wasn't born that way. You know what I mean? None of our children are born with violence in their heart. None of them are, you know, but it's something that's conditioned. It's something that we learn. And so even with living and dying in Brick City, I always say no child is born with a gun in their waistband, in their diaper band. What child do you see running around with a gun in their diaper? None. It's something that is learned. And so we're in high school, and the cool thing about Ramik and George, what was cool about them is that we didn't have to prove our toughness to one another. We knew where we came from, and we knew that we were trying to go somewhere. We didn't know yet what that was going to look like. So it wasn't like I'm trying to be tougher than this guy or whatnot. So what was important about that is that you have to choose your friends wisely. You know, the guys that I got in trouble with when I did the robbery, I just say, I'm done. I can't hang out with you guys. And like, oh, you think you're gonna go to college? You want what? College? Doctor? What? Come on, man. We from Dayton. You ain't going to no college. And so and it was sad because when they said that, it wasn't to tear me down, but in their hearts they believed that it was impossible. Improbable, but definitely not impossible. So me and Ramik and George, one day we're sitting in second period class. I still had it in me, you know. I still to this day got a little bit of excitement in me, you know. So we're sitting in second period class, and you know, we had a substitute teacher, and you know, we already been in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade together. So we already had our looks down. So we know as soon as we had a substitute teacher, we look at each other in the face and we like, all right, you know, cool. Operation cut a class in full effect, right? So I raised my hand. You know, the substitute teacher, I had to go to the bathroom. And so the substitute teacher like, sure, go ahead, go to the bathroom. And then Ramik raised his hand. He had to go to the principal's office to drop off an assignment. And, you know, the substitute teacher's like, sure, just go ahead, go with Sampson. Go ahead, y'all go ahead and, you know, go. Because the substitute teacher's like, look, I'm trying to get an easy day. I'm just trying to get in and out, and that's it. And George is like, I got to go, you know, make a call. So she was like, you too? All right, you three, just go ahead and go. You go make your call. And back then we had payphones. You know what a payphone is, right? Payphone is this big instrument. It goes on the wall, right? And so I was a master payphone user because my phone would get cut off all the time. I would have to go call my girlfriend down at the local bodega. And somebody would be on my phone, like, you on my phone, it's 6 o'clock. I got to call my girlfriend, right? So I need you to get off my phone. And, you know, like every day at 6 o'clock, you know I'm here, you know. And so, but do you guys know how to make, and I want to share, one thing you're going to learn today is how to make a free collect call where no one pays. Do you know how to make a free collect call where no one pays, right? You know. So this is where the hood sort of teach you a little something, right? So this is how you make a free collect call when no one pays. So when you dial, if you find a payphone, that's the question, because it's going to be hard to find a payphone, and your cell phone must not be working, right? So you're really in dire constraints. You're like probably stuck on a desert somewhere, no water, but a payphone will appear. So you got this payphone, right? And when you go, you dial 0 plus the number you're calling, right? That's how you make a collect call. But when you make a collect call, that person that you're calling get charged. Right? So this is how you make a free collect call with no one charges. So when you dial 01973242044, there'll be a beep, and they say, at the tone, say your name. So instead of saying your name, you look at the number on the payphone, you say, 201-245-8787. It rings the other phone, it says, hello, you have a collect call from, instead of saying Sampson, it says 973, the number I called from. I hang up the phone, the person, my girlfriend, she would hang up the phone, she would call me back. It's local, it's a free call for everyone. You see? I always point that out, right? Because the truth of the matter is you just never know. You never know where you may be. Now you know, I know how to change a tire, I know how to check my oil, now I know how to make a free collect call, right? So all three of us now, we're outside of the classroom. We're in the hallways, and we can't stay in the hallways because we're going to get caught. So we go into the boys' bathroom, and our bathrooms, I don't know, every public school bathroom felt like in Newark. None of the toilets worked. It always smelled, and it was just not a cool place to hang out. And so we're sitting there. We're like, you know, okay, second period is too early for recess. So we say to ourselves, let's go to the gym. We sneak into the gym, and we play basketball. We won't come through the front door because obviously we get caught. We would go through the basement. There was a door that led to the basement where the lockers were, and we would come up on another side, which was a little bit further in the back of the gym, and we would blend in with the gym class, and the teacher would never know. Miss Mosley would never know we were there hanging out, playing. Miss Mosley was near retirement too, so she was like, just don't bother me, and I'll let you guys do what you need to do. So we're walking down the hallways. We pretty much got to get from one side of the building, which was over here, to the other side where the gym was. And so we had to cross in front of the security guard desk to do that. Now, again, you know, our security guard was a little special, too. He would take his desk and he would turn it so that his back was to the hallway, right? So, you know, Mr. Johnson, you just kind of creep past Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson, by the time he realized you had crept and made it past him, it was too late anyway. So he looked down the hallway like, what you guys doing? And, you know, we'd be gone. We made our way to the end of the hallway. We would go down in the basement and come up on the other side of the gym and blend in with the class that was there. So we're walking, and we're getting close to the desk. And today we noticed that the desk is facing forward, so that was weird. And Mr. Johnson wasn't there. So as we're getting closer to the desk, all of a sudden we hear somebody behind us saying, you three, stop. So we have, you know, we like, oh, something ain't right. So we turn around. And we look, and when you know it, we had a substitute security guard, right? So now the substitute security guard was telling us three to stop, and we were walking. Before long, we're running, you know, and he's telling us to stop. We still pretending we're not hearing. We can hear his keys as it jingles, as he coming behind us, he's chasing us. And, you know, we're 17. You know, he's old. He's 40. He's never going to catch us, right? So we outran the security guard. We're about to make it to the end of the corner. We're about to turn, and we're going to go through the door that leads to the basement, go into the locker room, come back on the other side, blend in with the class. The substitute security guard really never seen our faces, so he's not going to know who we are once we're in the class and blended in. So we're making our way to the end. We're almost there, and then somebody steps out right in front of us. And guess who that person was? The principal, right? So now we're surrounded, you know, and even before then, like, we're stuck between the security guard and the principal. But I just needed a timeout because I wanted to ask why the principal was in the hallway, his second period, and she needed to be on the phone with some parent somewhere. It's like 10 a.m. What are you doing in the hallways? Like, but that wasn't my place, obviously. And so now we're sandwiched between the principal and the security guard. And we're caught. Like we're like, starting like, oh my God, we're gonna do. And just so happened today, of all days, we never gave this thought because this particular door was always closed, but it was our library. And our library had it was a double door library, it had 2 doors, it had wire mesh on the windows, it had 6 locks on the door. And I used to feel so bad for Mrs. Barnes because she was our librarian. She was definitely past her retirement. And she would get there and she would open all 6 locks and you just could see her getting low with it. And you could hear arthritis. So Miss John, I said, Mrs. Barnes, you need a hand? No, I got it, baby. I'm like, oh Lord, she's gonna get low. So she get low with it. And I let me just help you back up, Chris. Let me get your hand back up. And she's like, oh, I got it, baby. I got it. So, that was, oh, bless her heart, Mrs. Barnes. She was so nice. So the door today was open. And so we dove into the library as a last resort. I don't know why. We just was going to try to not get caught. But once we dove in there, we knew we would be caught. So we dove into the library, and so happened there was a seminar ongoing about careers in health and science being presented by Seton Hall University in South Orange. So all 3 of us scrambled, found a seat. They looked in, the security guard and the principal looked in maybe osmosis would take place. Maybe they will learn something. I don't know. Maybe some diffusion reaction process from the concentrated to not so concentrated, and the fluid would flow and some knowledge would land in these guys' mind. So I sat down and they let us stay in the seminar. And so Ramik listened in because, here was an opportunity to become a doctor. He didn't really think about becoming a doctor. Again, you can't aim for what you can't see. But he wanted to be a teacher. And doctors and teachers, they help people. So this is something that might work for me. And George listened in because George, all 3 of us wanted to be a dentist, which he is today. And so how did George grab onto this vision about becoming a dentist? We didn't grow up with dentists on our blocks. And so when he was 12 and 13, he went down to University Hospital in Newark, and it was a dental program that allowed young people from Newark to have braces on their teeth. And so George had braces put on his teeth, and the dental resident would take a few minutes of his time just teaching George the different teeth in the mouth, the molars, the premolars, the canines, the central incisors, the lateral incisors. Then he would teach George a different component of the tooth, the enamel, the dentine, the pulp, and the nerve. So George is a very simple, pragmatic guy. He's like, okay, how many teeth are there again? And he said, 32. He said, you promised me 32 teeth. It's not going to be 33 tomorrow. I said, nope, 32. And he said, now, you said, and remind me, and you said, if it's broke, I fix it. If I can't fix it, I pull it. He said, yep, you got it. Like, man, I think I could do this. I think I could become a dentist. So he grabbed onto that vision, I got it, bro. Fix, pull. Okay, cool. 32 teeth. So he grabbed onto the thought that he could become a dentist. And so here we were, fast forward, sitting in our senior year in the library, and it was an opportunity to become doctors and dentists being presented. So after the seminar was over, the guys, somebody woke me up, and we were in the hallways, and we had 4 minutes to get from second period to third period, and we would bleed every second of those 4 minutes to change class. And so these guys are in the hallway, they're jumping up and down, and they're excited, like, we're going to become doctors. And I'm like, hold on, time out. We're going to become what? Like, we just went into the library, we're cutting class, and now we're going to be doctors? They're like, yeah, we're becoming doctors. So they're excited, they're jumping up and down. And those are your boys, right? Your boys jumping up and down. You're jumping up and down too. So I'm just jumping with them. I don't know why I'm jumping, but I'm jumping. So when they said the word doctors, I was still jumping, but I wasn't jumping as high. So then I said, well, how long is that going to take? Because this McDonald thing is working out for me. I'm already assistant manager. This is going to be real. Before long, I will be manager. And then what happens? McDonald will show up and give me a McDonald's. Like, this is going to, I don't know about becoming a doctor, and so they're jumping up and they're excited. And I didn't know anything about medicine. All I knew was the TV show. And back then we had Trapper John, MD, and Quincy. You guys don't know anything about that. I don't expect you to. It's like ER, throwback, or Grey's Anatomy, rather. Even ER is old now. So they're excited. So I'm like, man, all right, so cool. So we're going to become doctors. I'm still jumping with them because those are my boys, right? So I said, all right, well, is that going to take a year? Is that going to take 2? They say, nah, it's going to take 8 years. They're like, hold on, time. So I stopped jumping. I'm like, you guys better go to school on purpose for 8 more years? I'm like, man, you crazy. Like, I'm not going to school for 8 more years. I'm like trying to get out of here. And they say, no, it'd be dope because we would do it together. And so you have to make sure, one, you know who you are. Believe in who you are. People will call you names and tell you that it's not possible. But you got to believe in yourself. The one thing that we can't measure is your will to succeed. I could tell you how tall you are. I could tell you how much you weigh. I could tell you what size shirt you wear, but I cannot measure your will to succeed. And you have to have a fire that burns in you that's so bright and so large that no one ever could put it out. You have to believe, regardless of how many no's you get told, you only need one yes. One yes. I got a call from a young student that I've been mentoring. She's been applying for medical school for 3 years. I sat down with her and I helped her go over her application, and she just got accepted to Rochester Medical School. And she's been applying for 3 years, living with roommates in an apartment, struggling just to get by because she wants to become a doctor and she believes that she can do it. They can never measure your will to succeed in life. So let that fire burn bright. Dream big. Dream big. Why not? Look, I knew rejection before I knew acceptance. I learned that. I was told no many a times before I even made it to college. So once we got accepted to college and I went for my interview, and they do this seminar presentation, look to your left, look to your right, nobody was going to be here, somebody's going to leave next semester. Look, I already knew I had AC now in the summer, heat in the winter, I wasn't going anywhere. Meal plan, 40 of your best friends living next door. And I was like, what? Like, hey, don't look at me because I'm here. And I was mad after 4 years they kicked me out. It was like, it's time to go. And college was the best time of my life. We went to homecomings and events and visit different schools. And it was, as I started to, I had a moment of survival guilt because I had to leave my old community and some of my friends that I called friends at that time behind. But part of it is that you have to move forward. You have to move forward. You cannot be stuck. You have to move forward. Whatever situation you're going through, if you're going through a trying time right now, it's temporary. But if you don't move forward, it can become permanent. So your fear should be, and my fear at the time is I didn't want to wake up 40 years old living in my mama's basement. There's nothing cool about living in your mama's basement at 40. Like, trying to tell your girlfriend, it's like both our places. I just let her stay upstairs, that's mom's. I can't kick her out. No, you living in your mama's basement. There's nothing sexy about that. And that should be your nightmare. And so college, 4 years went by and applied to, and you understand when we started college from Newark, baggy jeans and Timberlands were in style then, right? And now skinny jeans. I think Timbs are still rocking, right? We still can rock Timbs. I still got a pair. So when we started, I'm sure people looked at us. These three young guys are biology majors. They picked the most tough major to go into. And they think they're going to make it. Oh, man, this is going to be fun to watch. So we start off with 145 biology majors at Seton Hall. 45 or so went on to graduate because a lot of people changed their discipline, what they're focusing on. So 45 went on to graduate, and only 10 went on to receive their medical degrees, their dental degrees, their PhDs, and we were 3 of those 10. So by far, we were probably the biggest underdog. If you were a betting man in Vegas, you would have won big, because no one thought it was possible. But again, you can't measure a person's will. And what I found that worked for me is you surround yourself with like-minded people, positive like-minded people. I was by far not the smartest person, by far. But you start to hang around smart people. You just start like osmosis does take place. You're like, all of a sudden, pi equals 3.14. You don't know where that came from. When you hang around smart people, it just happens. You start just talking. I'm just talking a little bit better than because you're hanging around people who are offering you something that can enrich your presence, enrich who you are. So moving on throughout the years of college and medical school, which was very tough, which was, it had its trying moments. And I still remember receiving a letter, acceptance letter. Hi, Sampson Davis, you have been accepted into medical school. I messed up. They got the wrong person. They really invited me to come to med school. So went to Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, and 4 years of of going through medical school and learning everything from anatomy and doing dissections on the human body and moving from being moved and couldn't stand and couldn't even be around the sight of blood because I would get queasy, to now all of a sudden I'm doing dissections and have my lunch right here, eating my sandwiches. I dissect the sternum, open the sternum to see the lungs, to see the pleurisy that's surrounding lungs, to see the heart that's encased by the pericardium, and just looking at the pericardium, like, look at this fibrotic tissue. Let me just make a little incision through. Let me just remove the fat and some of the subcutaneous fat there just to get into the muscle of the heart. I mean, it goes so well with a turkey sandwich, I tell you. And so, have an opportunity to go through that learning process, and then returning home to Newark and to practice and train in emergency medicine in the same hospital I was born in, Newark Beth Israel, which, living and dying in Brick City. The latest book is about my years at Beth Israel and just kind of the complexities of the neighborhood and the personality of the neighborhood and the patients that I had an opportunity to take care of. To return home and to now practice medicine in that environment, to now be able to be a person that a young child could look to and say, I have a real image that I can aim for now. Somebody that in my neighborhood that I know I can become a doctor because he's from my neighborhood. He's a doctor, so I can do it too. And so that's what we need. We need more faces, more concrete images to emulate and model these careers. So you have the 3 architects, the 4 lawyers, the 5 engineers, the 6 astronauts, you name it, so that we glamorize and glorify education. So regardless of what you're going into, just be the best at what you're doing. Always think beyond, I'm not going to stop. Like, there's no stop button for me. It's like, it's just different levels, It's levels to this, It's different levels, right? It's different levels. So just keep going up. Okay, cool, this is great. I achieved this. This is done. Now it's the next thing. You keep elevating. There's no stop button. The only stop button is when your life is done and over, and I don't control that. None of us do. And so times are going to get tough. Moments are going to be dire. You're going to reach a point where you don't have anything left. And so you got to understand, a bad day is just that. It's a bad day. But quitting is forever. So you got to have a mantra, something that you grab onto. For me, it's my 3Ds. I came up with the 3Ds because medical school was very tough. Very, very tough for me. Not for everyone else, but that was my challenge. And so at moments where I wanted to quit, I just used the 3Ds, which stood for dedication, determination, and discipline. And I said, if I'm determined enough, nothing can penetrate. Nothing can get through to tell me that I can't. If I dedicate enough, if I show up every single day and dedicate myself, then at least I'm doing half the battle. If I'm disciplined enough, if I can wake up like I planned at 7 a.m., because when you're a child, your mom can wake you up for school, but when you're an adult, you got to make sure that alarm clock goes off and that you get up. So if I could discipline myself enough, then nothing can ever break that mantra. Nothing can penetrate my moments of doubt. Nothing. Or rather, I say nothing can penetrate my will to survive, and those moments of doubts would not be able to surface. So my mantra, the 3Ds, develop one for yourself. Write it down on a Post-it. Put it on your desk. Put it on your refrigerator. Something that speaks to who you are as your personality, and let that be the fortitude and the strength to get through any moments of doubt and uncertainty. So coming back and being back in Newark now, and then I finished my residency, stayed on for a few years as an attending physician in emergency medicine. And during my residency, the story of the 3 of us graduating broke, headlines. It made its way to the front page of the Star Ledger. One day I was home washing dishes and the phone rang, because we had home phones then too. And the phone rang and it was Oprah. And so it was like, Oprah wants you to come to Chicago right now. So when Oprah calls, you got to stop whatever you're doing. It's like it's a law. So I left the water running, and you cannot pack. You just got to go right to the airport. You don't need any ID. It's okay. Trust me. TSA, you just saw an Oprah call. They're like, go right on through. Security let you right on through. And so I had no suit, no clothes, no ID. Flew to Chicago, and got there suited and booted. Oprah touched my knee. I fell in love. She didn't. While we was on her show, and it just was moments like that. I never knew education would allow me the opportunity to be on television, to write books. There's so many blessings waiting for you I can't even tell you about if you just go after your main goal. Things that's unpredictable, that's waiting for you if you just be the best that you are at what you're doing. I never plan on being a public speaker or a professional speaker traveling the country. And, at one moment I was on the Today Show every other week. I never planned on that. That wasn't part of my reality. I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to make it. But along the way, I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the best that I can do. I don't look at the next person's hand. I can't play your hand. Your cards are your cards. That's why we're playing against each other or we're playing a game or whatnot. Your cards are your cards. I can't look at your hand and say, oh, well, he's smarter than me or she's more gifted than me. If that person you think is smarter than you or more gifted, that means you just got to work harder because you got to know yourself. What does it take for you to master this craft? So if you got to put in an extra 2 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, whatever it takes, you're just as smart because you know that's how much time you have to put in. So never look at anyone else's hand. You're only competing against yourself. Surround yourself with like-minded, positive people. Always have that will to succeed. Always have that fire burning inside of you. And when you're done, well, you're never done, but as you start to achieve, make sure you give back. Because your younger brothers and sisters for them. And sometimes I hear people say, well, I can't convince them. I talk to them, they don't listen to me. The best way to convince somebody is that you walk your walk. They're looking. And once you achieve, I can't tell you how many phone calls I got once I graduated medical school. I mean, people who dropped out of grammar school, like, how can I become a doctor? Like, you can't. It ain't going to happen. Like, not to say it like that, but I mean, it just was calls from the unexpected people, the toughest people on the block calling me, asking me how they can do it. So you walk your walk and people are looking, And when you achieve, give back, because so many people have given to you. So many people have paved the way for you to be here today. So be the best that you can be. Always believe in yourself. Make sure you give back. And then, just always try to say to yourself, what can I do to help somebody else along the way? Because, again, it's all about paying it forward. Thank you. I think we want to take questions. Okay, so yeah, we have some time for some Q&A. I could talk longer, but I knew we had questions, so let's, I don't know how we're, so raise your hand, yeah. Okay. What was probably the biggest challenge you had to face to achieving your goals and motivation? I think the biggest challenge, there were so many challenges. I mean, there were financial hardships, academic challenges, personal relationship challenges. They all just kind of bundled together. I think, I had to get used to, if I can categorize it, I had to get used to understanding that challenges are always going to be there. Like, obstacles are always going to be there. Disappointment will be there at times as well. And when you start to understand that, oftentimes we go through our life trying to avoid challenges, which makes sense, right? But if you realize that they're there, but you have the ability to rise above them, that you're never going to let it stop you, then challenge loses its power. Fear loses its power. Like, to me, it's like I'm, if I get hit with an obstacle, I'm like, I not that I expect it, but it's there, and I'm not going to let it have power. I'm going to move around it. So, I had academic challenges. I didn't have money to go to college, but I never let that stand in the way. I figured out, there has to be a solution. I'll focus on the solution and not the problem, and my motivation was just like all of you. I wanted to make something of my life. I just felt, look, life, you only get one shot at this. You only get one shot at this process here. So why not make the most of it? And I felt that I had dreams. We all have dreams. I didn't want to live in cramped quarters. I wanted to do something better for my children. I wanted to set the bar high and reach a point where I can, have my children say, this is a different environment that you grew up under, and so that to me was my motivation. And my mother, I just felt that, for all the hard work that my mother did in raising, she had plenty of opportunity to walk out on all 6 kids. She could have like, I'm out of here, deuces, like, this is too hard. But my mother went hungry at nights just to make sure we had. So, for me, that was a huge motivation. I had to do it because, at some point, it was time just to put up, and I just put in energy and trusted in the system that it would get me there. I didn't know I was going to get accepted to medical school. It was 4 years of uncertainty. But I had to trust that if I did what I needed to do, that I would get that acceptance letter.
And we have a call from Clifton.
Clifton, okay.
So this question is from the Clifton campus. Did your mother live to see your success?
So from a question from the Clifton campus, did my mother live to see my success? What's interesting, when I was in court for the robbery, I don't remember much because it was a very dark moment in my life, but I remember looking back and I remember seeing the look on my mother's face. She was the only one that was there within my circle of friends. You know what I mean? Like all my homies that I was cool with, and they weren't there. But my mother was there, and it was a pain on her face that I can't even describe to this day. And I promised myself she would never have that look on her face ever again. And so when I graduated medical school, and all three of us walk across the stage, you talk about somebody who had their pom-poms and cheerleading on, my mother was there. And she's been there every step of the way. So much that in times of me practicing at Beth Israel, she would come to the emergency department and she would sign in, and they was like, well, she would come into the waiting room and they would ask her to sign in. And she's like, no, I'm okay. I'm just waiting on someone. She would just come to the hospital to sit down just to hear my name called on the intercom. You know what I mean? Like, how cool is that, right? And she would sit there and then somebody would come and say, your mom is sitting in the waiting room. And she's like, I just wanted to hear him say your name, baby, on the intercom. I mean, like, it's like, man, like that is just the coolest thing out. So.
First, I want to say that your story is very inspirational.
Thank you.
You're proof that success doesn't go by what you have or what you don't have. It's not by luck or if you're gifted or not. It's based on your will. Mm-hmm. If you have a vision, just follow it.
Yeah.
So you are a big proof of that.
Thank you.
And that helps me a lot because, a lot of people, you go through obstacles, make you feel like, maybe this is not for me, but like you said, the only obstacle that I have to keep on moving.
Right.
I have one question. If you go back, what would you change?
If I was to go back, what would I change? It's always tough to answer that question. In the moment, I would have changed a lot. As the moment was happening, I would have changed a heck of a lot. But, looking back at it now, it's like those obstacles, those moments of challenge, those moments of uncertainty, those moments where the door was closed and you had to create a new door, is what allowed me to be here today. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where, I would look up to the clouds and like, God, why am I going through this? Why am I, born in this position? I would watch TV and fantasize about being the child on television that was born into that great family, and that was my way of escaping the reality. But those moments is who you become. It builds the character to who you will become. And so they either can be uplifting and empowering, or they could be paralyzing and destructive. And it's up to you to decide what they're going to be. So I wouldn't change anything. I mean, I lost my sister passed away during the process. She was battling certain demons. I would probably change that if one thing. I would love to have her here with me today.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Paramus.
Yes, so this is from Paramus, and the question is, can you talk about a tough moment in the ER in your neighborhood?
Okay, so good question. I mean, again, living and dying, the question for Paramus is a tough moment in the ER from my neighborhood. Can I speak upon about that? So living and dying in Brick City really encompasses a lot of the stories in the emergency department, but it's not told in a medical kind of heavy way. It's kind of just a regular read about things that happens in your neighborhood and how they present to the hospital. So one moment, sometimes you make decisions in life and you're like, it's almost as if it's a fork in the road. And you're like, I hope that the decision that I made, I had either a yes or a no. And I chose this one. I hope that was the right one. So to show you the gravity of the decision that I made, the book opens Living and Dying in Brick City with me reporting for duty in the trauma ward at University Hospital. And so I was on trauma. It's a training process in which we spent 2 months, and you're on call 30 hours a day, and you're off for 30 on and 18 off, 30 on and 18 off. So you go in 7 a.m., you get off around 12 p.m. the next day, and then you go home, sleep, come back. So you do that for 2 months. And my first day on trauma, and you're dealing with all gunshots, stab wounds, car accidents. And we have a board that's kind of like on this wall. It's a chalkboard, and it has all the traumas listed on the chalkboard. And so my first day, I noticed a name on the board that seemed very familiar, but I was saying, what are the possibilities? It was, the age seemed about right. Just use the initials AW. Was brought in, 29-year-old male, and we have a S/P, which stands for status post, which means this is kind of what happened. 29-year-old male, status post GSW, which is gunshot wound, abdomen, and hip. And it said, patient did well overnight, but expired that next morning. Expired the morning that I started, so it was a slash through AW's name. So I'm looking, and I'm saying, wow, I know this name, and I know this age. So I'm sitting there, and we're going through all the traumas the night before. We had about 25 traumas the night before, and we signed out. So first day, once the medical rounds were over, I jumped up and I asked where the surgical ICU was. So because on the board it said he was in surgical ICU bed 6. And so I ran through the double doors of the surgical intensive care unit, ran down the hallway, and as I approached the family, or the room, I noticed that the family was there, and it turned out that it was the same guy who I grew up with, who I did the robbery with. He was murdered that day, or the night before, in a gun battle in the neighborhood, and he had died. And so, I mourned with the family, but it also made me realize, when it came to that fork in the road, I made the right decision. Sometimes you say, did I make the right decision? But I had no doubt, but that cemented it, that it was the right decision. He lost his life, unfortunately, to the streets. And so it was something where I was torn, because now I'm a doctor, and I have a professional hat, but also I'm human. And I have a human side that is going to take precedence and take the lead. So, it was tough for me to kind of realize, wow, that could have been me. I could have lost my life to the same situation. Yeah.
You were talking about how you came from a place of have dogs in a situation of have nots. I don't know if you have kids or not, but they're obviously not going to experience the same hardships as you did. How are you going to motivate your kids, or anybody younger than you who's not, or who didn't grow up in the same situation that you did? How are you going to motivate them to basically pick up and get after what they want?
So how am I going to motivate my kids? I have 2 boys, and other younger people who are from the same privileged situations. Here's what's unique, is that we all have challenges. We all have challenges, a child that's growing up in a sort of safe situation, they have to eventually step out into the real world. They have to be a part of the real universe. I can't protect my boys to be not a part of that. Now, granted, they don't know anything about growing up poor. They don't know the first thing. They just think like they could go to the store and get anything on the shelves because daddy could do it, right? And it's great. But I make it a priority to expose them to arenas that's different from what they're in. So they come to Newark. I bring them to Newark, and I if you talk, I'll leave you here, So, because I always say, I got James, he's waiting to take your room, so get fly if you want, James will move right on in. So I show them reality that exists, but the point is that challenges faces us. I don't care if you come from the safe community or the enriched community of Short Hills, or if you come from the struggle of the streets of Newark or Patterson. It doesn't matter. Challenges face everyone. I do feel, though, that my dynamic of where I grew up just gives you a certain grit that you can't learn because you're faced with obstacles every single day. But these challenges run across the gamut. It doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter your social economic ladder. We all have challenges. We all have people who grew up in situations who can't move forward because they don't know how to, because they never faced any real life obstacle. So they're kind of stuck in a position where they have all the opportunity to achieve, but they don't know how because they never was sort of pushed in that direction. So I think the message resonates, and I think I know it resonates. I just feel like, it's one of those things where you hear anybody speak, you have to kind of take away what you need from that talk. And so for that, community, I feel like if they focus on that, they can take away a nice big size pearl that they can use, moving forward.
And we have a question from the online campus.
This is from a student. She asks, there are other ways that people can contribute to their community. Organizations designed to help the community allows for those like myself who has moved from my old neighborhood to still give back by donating money on an ongoing basis. Do you have an organization that you've set up for people who are proud of your accomplishments that they can contribute to and support?
Absolutely. What campus is that from?
She's an online student.
Online. Okay. Oh, online student we have. Online. All right. So she's for campus online. Okay. So she said, do I have an organization where people can contribute and support that I support myself or have? So interestingly enough, I have a foundation, which I failed to mention, called the Three Doctors Foundation. I have my executive director, Wendy White, there. She's been a part of the Three Doctors Foundation for, since last century. Let's just leave it like that. Well, late last century. Very, very late. Like the last year of the last century. Got to clean that one up. So, in the Three Doctors Foundation, me, Ramik, and George formed. We were residents, We were in training still, and we had student loans, and we joked because we had this envision of forming this organization to give back, and we laughed because we were probably the poorest philanthropists you knew. We were only philanthropists you knew with student loans, and so we formed the Three Doctors Foundation to create opportunities that's focused on health, education, leadership, and mentoring. That's the sort of mission of our organization. So we host programs in the city of Newark throughout the year that's focused on healthy living and mentoring program. We partner with Montclair State University to do programs and other universities, mentoring development programs. We do peer pressure challenge because, again, that peer pressure is so important, and sometimes it's seen as a negative, but you really can flip it on its head and make it a positive thing, and so that you inspire each other to bring out the good in you instead of the bad. And so we do a peer pressure challenge, and so we've been doing this. We're celebrating our 16th or 17th year, 16th year, and it's bad. We start to lose the number. 16th year, we'll have our gala. We do a gala every year in May, the second Friday in May. So we're celebrating, and we've been blessed because with what we've done is so many people, and oftentimes we live in a country we celebrate celebrities. So we have had the honor of really having some real A-listers come out and be a part of the gala and the event and what we're doing. So it's always a good thing to know that, this resonates beyond your blocks, that it reaches other people and it sort of hit their eardrums as something that they want to be a part of as well. So the Three Doctors Foundation, you can always go online too. We have threedoctorsfoundation.org, threedoctors.com. You can find out more information. And we're on social media as well. I was tweeting today, letting everybody know, I was excited to be here. So I'm trying to learn that social media game. It's like everything is Snapchat and all. Like, what is that? Like, it's so bad. I hate when you finally reach that point where you done been passed on. So.
And we have another question from our Woodbridge campus.
From Woodbridge. Have you ever been back to the McDonald's that was open?
So for Woodbridge, I've ever been back to that McDonald's. That is my McDonald's. I think McDonald's owe me. It's the same McDonald's that's in my old neighborhood. The interesting thing about your parents is so tough to uproot them. Like my mother would not leave the neighborhood. She's, that's her community. And that's a community, and all the craziness that happens there, she still walks the blocks and nobody touches her. She has earned that sort of respect from everybody from young to old there. And so the McDonald's is still there, and I drive by it often when I'm over there seeing her. I do go in, but it's different now. It's not what it used to be, but it's still there. And hopefully McDonald's will realize that they owe me before it gets too late.
Anyone else in the room?
I'm sorry. You just very briefly brushed on the fact that you wrote a couple of books. Can you talk about that?
So the question is, I wrote a few books and I kind of just touched on them, but not in detail. So the first book, which was called The Pact. So after our story hit the front page of the Star Ledger, it was like this snowball effect, which was totally unexpected for us. I was really didn't know how to handle it because I was so green, and it was just something I wasn't planning for. Like I said, it was a blessing that you just don't know what's waiting for you. And so once the story hit the front page, it was like phone calls, Essence, People Magazine, Washington Post, New York Times, the stories after stories, and Oprah. So after the right before the Oprah event, we were honored. Essence Magazine to do a big event, Essence Achievement Awards, and it was the year that we were honored. We were honored on stage. It was us, Michael Jordan, hosted by Oprah. It was some other big time celebrities there being honored. I'm like, okay, this is weird. This is awkward. I'm by far the poorest guy here, and I can't dunk. So it's like we're being honored, along the likes of some real high power people. So after that, we got back home, and then a major book company had reached out to us and said they want to do a book. And so we sat down to write the pack and finished the pack in about 7 months, which only emphasized that because that's unheard of, to finish a book in that short period of time. The pack went on to become a New York Times bestseller. It's sold over 1 million copies, to date. And each year it still sells about 50 to 60,000, which is I only point that out to you because as we were doing the book, the editors and the book company at Penguin Books were like, this book here is going to be an evergreen book. I don't know what an evergreen book is. I didn't know what that was. But an evergreen book is a book that sells a lifetime. It continues to sell year after year without any promotion or any marketing behind it. So the pack happened, and then We Beat the Street, which is a younger version of the pack, an adolescent version. And we wrote a book called The Bond. And The Bond was a book that we did together based on the premise that we all grew up without our dads, and we wanted to reconnect with them, not necessarily to kind of not to sort of hate on them or attack them, but just to understand what they were going through. So we did a chapter, our fathers did a rebuttal chapter, and then we did a response to that rebuttal in The Bond. And so we were able to kind of heal, because when you grow up angry at your parents, you don't start to move forward till you learn how to forgive them. And you have to forgive, because if not, you say, well, I'm not going to forgive him, or I'm not going to forgive her. But if you don't, you're still carrying that burden. And that burden can stop you from being a better parent. It can stop you from progressing and being where you need to go in life. So The Bond happened. And then with me, with living and dying in Brick City, I did that book just based upon, I said, how cool would it be to write a book about what happens in the emergency department, but not from a medical heavy standpoint, but just from a real life, this is a person that showed up with an advanced stage of, of an illness that they should have seen a doctor for. So hopefully it would motivate all of us to kind of really be in charge of our health and just be accountable for our health. I think it's very important because we all want to live long. I'm trying to hit that 100, hoping that I have all my faculties if I can make it there. But in order to do that, you have to do things today to make sure that you can reach that point.
And we have a question here, and then the North Campus has a question.
Right. My question is basically like when you spoke, you said like not to stop and keep elevating. So like, what are you doing next? Like, what's next?
So that's a good. So I don't believe in how people are like, well, I reached my point, I'm done, I'm about to retire. To me, retirement is like there's no such word as retirement. Yeah, so there's a retirement from the physical form of saying this job you're working here today. But you should always looking at like what I'm going to do to add some value to who I am or to my community and stuff. So for me right now, I'm actually working on 2 books right now. Neither one I've sold yet or developed fully. I have the concept down, and I'm hoping that I can start to put pen and paper and get the books out by next year. One book is called, the working title is called The Stuff, and it's really finding these stories of people who's been hit with the worst news ever, and how they find what is it that allowed them to thrive and rededicate and repurpose their life in order to reach new heights. I just give you the worst news ever. Example, Magic Johnson, when he was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS, in 91, there was no treatment. There was treatment, but the treatment was just like a Band-Aid. I mean, he looked in the cameras on national television and said, I will beat this. What gave him the strength to believe that is even possible, where science at the time said there's no treatment for this? So I want to find those type of stories with this stuff. And I'm really now starting to focus on doing more health-related, kind of what you need to know about your health, but in a fun way, not in a kind of overly medical way. So I'm developing a concept with that with a media marketing company. So hopefully that stuff will start to roll out. I'm still traveling the country speaking, which is a fun passion of mine. I really enjoy connecting with you guys, and hopefully I said something today that sparked something inside of you, because it's there. It's just a matter of just sometimes it being sparked.
Newark campus.
All right.
So from Newark we have, what advice would you give our Newark students who are watching, who continue to struggle in this environment?
So for Newark, I mean, that's my hometown. I think, look, regardless if it's Newark or any other community, we can focus on the excuses. We can focus on the circumstances, or we could just allow that to be what it is and do what we need to do. I don't care if you say I'm too poor, or I'm not, I don't have the funds, or I don't have the grades. I didn't have any of that either. So once you start to focus on where you're trying to go and eradicate and erase the excuses or the situation, then you start to kind of see that you can reach your goals, because again, whatever situation you're in, if it's a dire situation, it really is up to you. It could be a permanent situation, or it could be temporary. You have the most precious gift right now, which is your youth. Most of you guys, I'm looking at your faces, you got to be 18, 19, we may have a big 20-year-old here, but I mean, your guys are at a sweet spot in life. And so you have your youth, and you can accomplish a whole lot, in the next 5 to 10 years. So Newark, Patterson, Passaic, a lot of our inner city communities, Irvington, East Orange, it has a struggle and it has its challenges, but you can't let that be something that stop you from going. Look, I work in 7 different emergency departments, right? All over the state of New Jersey. I work in the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich. And you'd be surprised how many people from the well-to-do communities are coming in on drugs, overdosing on heroin and stuff like that. You'd be surprised. So these situations exist everywhere. The thing with inner cities that is more prevalent and more prominent because it's so much of it, and there's no way to cover it. In the well-to-do communities, you best believe dad and mom get ahead of that thing. They cover it up. They make sure that it doesn't surface. So it's more resources. The problem is like the mistakes that we make, you only get allowed one, and that's it. And you're not really allowed that one. So, life is about taking chances and risks, but you just got to make sure that those are educated risks that you're taking, something that's not going to get you in a world of trouble. So regardless of what the backdrop is, it's a temporary backdrop. And you don't have to be a permanent. You just have to believe and have that will to know that, if you're from Newark, that it's possible. It doesn't matter. It's just whatever. It's just the playground that you're playing on today. It's an away game, and eventually you'll reach your home game.
How about Dover?
Dover campus, we have, when you come back home, how do you react to those people who may feel you think you are now better than they are?
So when I come back home, the question from Dover, when I come back home, how do I respond to people who think now that I am better than them? So the two things. One, I've always been who I was, so I'm always been me, and not always, but at some point I reached a point where I realized, like, this is my body, and I gotta rock with this me. I can't be who I'm not. So, if people hate on me because I believe in me, then that's great. You're a hater. I know exactly where to put you, right in the hater corner, right over here. Right where haters hang out at. Haters are really good at what? Hating. That's what they do. I mean, if you find a person who was a believer who was as strong as a hater, then I would hire that believer. But if I wanted some hater, and I'm hiring haters today, I want to hire that hater because a hater is really good at what they do. They hate. So you got to recognize them. You can't change them. That's what you are. You're a hater. So you can't let that person bring you down. I've been fortunate not to have people think that I'm somewhat different, because I'm always never been who I wasn't. At some point when I realized after, my running with the law, I knew I wasn't a criminal. I knew that wasn't who I was. I just wasn't comfortable being in that environment. It wasn't who I was. Like, some people were comfortable with that. A lot of reasons, because they had the security of having a place to sleep and they had some food in their stomach. So they were comfortable with that environment. But I wasn't. So I always been who I was, and if a person didn't like me because of that reason, or thought differently of me, or wanted to throw some shade on me because of that reason, that's cool. Like, you go in the hater category, no problem. I want to hang out with you anyway. So I find that when you're a genuine person and you don't try to be who you're not, and you always have a compass for what's real and what people have gone through, then nobody will ever feel like you're trying to be something that you're not, and nobody will ever should never throw hate or shade on you for that.
And this one right here.
Do you still struggle with the question regarding doctors doing more harm than good based off the Hippocratic Oath?
Do I still struggle with the question of doctors doing more bad than good, right? Based upon Hippocratic. So the Hippocratic Oath is always do more good than, but you're saying in regards to reversing it, or?
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, look, medicine is a science. That's why they call it arts and science, because it's kind of an art form to it. It's like you learn a certain amount of information, and then you really become an artist. I don't treat two patients the same. It's like, even though you could come with the same ailment, I treat you like you came in with chest pain, you may get nitroglycerin, aspirin, I may do a CBC, CMP, CK, troponin on you, portable chest x-ray, and admit you to the telemetry observation. Like, that's maybe your diagram. Whereas this person here may get a D-dimer, do a CTA of the chest, CT angio, make sure they don't have a pulmonary embolism. Same presentation, but different, but there's an art to it. You learn the art. The goal with the Hippocratic Oath is always do more good than harm. But in medicine, there's been some cases where bad has been done. But this is why I feel it's important for all of us to understand what it is that we're taking as far as our medications, what our medical ailments are. For guys, I'm a big car fan. I always knew, okay, I had Dubs on my car. You know what I mean? Like, I knew what type of rims and tires I had on my car. That's when Dubs were popular. 20-inch rims, they're not, well, that moment is gone. But you knew what type of rim you had in your car because you were into it. And you have to be excited about your health into the same way. You should know if you have asthma, using albuterol inhaler, and how often you use it, and the prednisone. And if you have high blood pressure, you should know if you're taking labetalol, lisinopril, and which medication, what side effects of those medications. If you're diabetic, exercise, fitness, all that stuff is important. And we have to make sure that, we are understanding of that. Then you bring that information to the doctor. The doctor is going to say, okay, you are invested in your health, and I got to make sure I do the same thing in return. I got to invest into you because you're invested into you. I also have patients sometimes show up, and like, they come into my ER. I mentioned in living and dying in Brick City, they come into my ER, they lay on the stretcher in the gurney, and they fall, you rescue me. Like, no, I can't rescue you. What I mean? Like, you got to help rescue you. I can't, I can't. So, the ER or medicine is not a place where you surrender your rights now to be invested in your health. You have to be involved in your health and understand your health. It's so important. Again, you have youth on your side, but as you get older, you're going to see things start to change. So whatever you do today, is going to help prevent off a lot of elements down the road, and not taking medications and pills where if you do the right things today, you won't have to face that reality. I had a 40-year-old, was a 33-year-old guy come in the other day in cardiac arrest. He smoked and he had asthma. It's not a good combination. It's not a good combination. And, it's the toughest thing telling his parents that he died. It's the toughest thing, and, at that age, once you get to that age and past that age, you realize that's a young age, and it's totally preventable, so that's why we have to make sure we take care of our health.
And with the New York City campus.
Okay.
So this is a multi-part one.
Okay.
You made an impact in Newark. Do you see yourself staying in this area or moving on? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And what happened to Melissa in the book? Okay.
So the question from New York City was, I made an impact in this area. Do I see myself moving on? Not physically. I think I want to be here. I'm still able to travel a lot. Like I'm on a plane often, going to different parts of the country, speaking. in different areas, which I love and enjoy. What was the second part of that question? I'm sorry.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I'm not one of those guys that make, when the new year happens, it's like January 1st, I got my resolutions down, and then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. I'm going to, apply for that new job. I don't live for New Year's in that sense. I'm happy and thankful to be here, but I live in the moment that I always got to try to make today better than yesterday and tomorrow better than today. I live in that sort of philosophy. And then it's too much pressure to say in 10 years I'm going to be here, I think. It's too much pressure. So all I can say is I only keep walking that walk towards my destiny, of whatever that is in my mind, trying to be the best that I can be. And it will figure itself out. You got to trust in the process. You got to have faith. And you got to have hope. And Melissa's, me and Melissa are still together. I met Melissa in Brooklyn at a house party. That's when we used to have house parties. Do you still have house parties? Yeah. I'm just joking with y'all. I knew they had house parties. So met in Brooklyn at a house party, and I saw her. She had on this red T-shirt, and she was walking, and all of a sudden, I was like, oh man, So I went and as we said, hollered at her, right? And and she said no, and then somebody happened to be a mutual friend there that we had, Marvette, who's like this big time PR guru, and she introduced us, and Melissa and I have been together now for 12 years. We have 2 beautiful boys, 8 and 2, Jackson and Luke. So so it's still rock steady. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Questions over here.
Okay.
You did mention even before that kids aren't born without hope.
Right.
Can you please expound on that statement?
So in Brick City, is like I was grappling with a section about just the gun battles that we see that play out in the community, people shooting one another. And so when I was growing up, if I had a disagreement with someone, we would fight. And not to say that's the right answer. I'm not saying that's the right answer. In the worst case scenario, you would get jumped. But now people pull out a gun, and you don't realize, like, once you exchange gun battle, like, that person's not coming out. Make believe. It's not like take 2, let's do it again. No, that person is not coming back. So we have a desensitized feeling towards life, towards death, that we feel like we don't realize that you're taking away a person's life. And so kids are not born that way. They're not born hopeless. They're not born thinking that gun battle is how you resolve conflict, or arguments is how you resolve conflicts. That's a learned behavior. That's a taught behavior. No human is born. Think about a baby. You see a baby, with a scowl on his face, reaching for his weapon. No. You're like, oh, look, you're cute. They smile back at you with their gums like it's the best thing. So I only make that point because we can't depend on factors to change it. We have to change. We have to be accountable for. Because each one of us, if we're accountable for and we don't carry forth that same sort of behavior and showing a young kid or another young person, if we don't solve our disagreements as a collective with reaching for a weapon, then the murders will go away. We can't police it, right? How many times have you heard about the police or the National Guard coming into a community trying to change it around? There has to be a change. And a lot of that has to do with the mentality and the complexity of the community. Poverty is another big reason. Lack of education is another big reason. But I'm not reaching for no gun and no disagreement with anyone. I'm human. I have moments, I'm in the car driving, somebody cut me off, like, oh, I want to get them, but no, you have to recognize it for what it is. But when you pull a trigger or you create this situation where a child is hopeless and they feel like their future is bright, now you created a situation that's dire. Now you created a situation that's desperate. My mother, even growing up in a situation that we grew in, public assistance, light cut off, no phone, she always had hope. She always had hope, and I grabbed on to that hope. And she said, she would look at me, she's like, just go to school, it'll figure itself out. Always had hope. So you got to remain hopeful in all that you're doing. And I can promise you, within reason that it will work out for you. But the hopelessness that I see exists when I see a 15 or a 16-year-old kid, and I ask them at 9 or 8 years old, what you want to be in life, and they want to be, remember you were like 6 years old, you wanted to be a cop, you want to be the president, like I want to be part-time, I want to be a lawyer, and then the other part, I want to be a doctor, then I want to be the president too. Like you have all of these dreams, and then somewhere at 15, when you ask that same question, you're like, I don't know, I'm just trying to make it. Like we got to keep that hope instilled in our community and our children, and then I think that will empower us to really defeat some of the tragedies and some of the despair that takes place.
Okay, we'll make this our last question.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Your talk has been very inspirational.
Thank you.
I heard this talk prior when I was in grammar school.
Okay.
And your talk actually inspired me to go and better myself and go to a different high school than just going to settle into a regular high school that
Wow.
our community usually goes to. And for that, I was the first person in my family to actually go to a different high school than just community high school.
Wow.
So that was very inspiring to me back then, and hearing it now and seeing where I am from grammar school to college is completely different and inspiring.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, wow. So you really make me feel young. So she was so well said that she heard me speak when she was in grammar school. I was like, you say grammar school or you say grammar school? Because I didn't want to imagine that I've been doing this long. But in grammar school, and now you're in college, and have I ever gone back and tried to find those moments of people's journey from where they've been to where they are now and see how it's impacted them. At one time, me and the other two guys, Ramik and George, we thought about doing a project based upon that. And we still get emails to this day of people who we met years ago. And it was crazy. Like they have a picture of the three of us with them from whenever that time was. You could tell the difference in a lot of things, right? And it's just, it really warms my heart because it just goes to show that it works. You know what I mean? That it works, and that that it means a lot. We haven't yet formulated a way to do that, but at some point in time, I would love to collect those moments and share it with the public because I just think they're really special moments. I had a professor, I never forget, Dr. Linda Shee, and it reminds me of a moment of Dr. Linda Shee because I remember going to her. She was my genetics professor at Seton Hall, and Dr. Linda Shee had no relationship to me. They told me when you get to college, sit in front of the class, get to know your professor, take your notes, do your notes when you get back home. And I didn't know why I had to go get to know my professor. That made no sense to me, but they say do it. So I would just go to Dr. Linda Shee's office during her office hours because every professor had office hours. And she would like, okay, can I help you? Like, I'm just here. Like they told me to come see you, so I'm here. So, we developed a relationship. And so she was my first semester genetics professor. So she followed me through my first year, second year, third year, fourth year of college. And so she was really instrumental in helping me get all the materials together to apply for medical school. So my first day in medical school, she called me the night before. And she's like, Sam, this is Dr. Shee. So when I first met, Dr. Shee, she was like 5'2". By the time I graduated, she was 4'11". So, so she was like, I'm just calling to make sure that you're ready for school tomorrow. Like, I'm good. She's like, do you have your books? Like, no, Dr. Shee, I don't have my books. She's like, well, I'm coming to give you money to get your books. So Dr. Shee, this, tiny Asian woman, she jumps in her car. It's raining. She's driving, her Honda Civic. She's coming to the school to drop off money, which I told her not to do. So she's driving and she's coming down. It's raining. Just could see her driving, her car, hydroplaning, coming to, give me money, so that I can buy books. So there it reached a point in me that I have to do that for someone else. You know what I mean? Because she had no reason outside of being a good human to do that for me. I had no relationship to her. And so when people do stuff like that for you, you have to say to yourself, what can I do? And this is the crusade and the passion and the mission that I'm on now, to try to spark. Like I said, I can't give any one of you what you don't have, but hopefully I can move you to reach for what you do have inside of you, because all of us have a special gift. You know, you're not put on this universe without that special gift. Tap into that gift and let it blossom, let it shine bright, and don't make any apologies for it. Thank you.
Let's give Dr. Sampson a really round of applause for this. Now we will have our closing remarks with Dr. Dallas Reed.
Dr. Davis, I knew that this day would be incredible and inspirational for our students. What I did not know is that it would be for the associates as well. And so from the bottom of my heart and from the entire Berkeley College family, this little token of paraphernalia to remember Berkeley College and this experience. And truly, join me once again, a huge round of applause for Dr. Davis. In just 2 minutes of your time, once again, words that have touched us all and words that have challenged and inspired each and every one of us. There was a quote once that was said by Gandhi and several others that said, "Be mindful of your thoughts, because your thoughts become your words. Be mindful of your words, because your words become your actions. Be mindful of your actions, because your actions become your habits. Be mindful of your habits, for your habits become your character. Be mindful of your character, because it builds and sets the foundation of your destiny." Dr. Davis talked about the 3 Ds: dedication, determination, and discipline, all of which have built the foundation for the destiny. Thank you once again for such inspiring words. I know that he's got to get moving. I just want to extend also a huge heartfelt thank you to Janelle Giles, our Director of Student Development and Campus Life. She had a vision. She persevered. She was determined, she was dedicated, and she was disciplined. But as we know, with every great visionary, there takes a team. I want to also extend a huge heartfelt thank you to our online division, our online book club, Jennifer Lidback, Matt LeBrake, as well as our BIA team, Angela Harrington from External Community Relations for being here today, Wendy White, who you met very briefly, who spearheads the foundation for Dr. White, as well as all of our entire online folks that are joining us across the system. So thank you very much.